Good morning, it's today again. Welcome back to Joseph's Reserves. I'm Joseph and I store 20% of my income in the form of rare coins and precious metals. A lot of people misunderstand what silver actually is. They compare it to stocks or cryptos, they compare it to investments that are supposed to explode overnight. And honestly, I think that mindset causes a lot of people to completely miss the purpose of silver. Because silver is not a get-rich-quick investment, silver is a savings account. Congratulations to Silver Serpents for being the first comment in yesterday's video. Thank you so much for the support. Definitely go check out Silver Serpents content. So today we're talking about how silver is like a savings account. And I know that sounds strange at first because most people think of a savings account as something sitting inside of a bank, something digital, something liquid, something that can be instantly transferred from that savings account to your checking account so it can be spent immediately. But honestly, that's the exact problem because money that is too liquid is incredibly easy to spend. Almost everyone watching this video has experienced a moment where they move money from a savings account into a checkings account because they need something. Really, that is, they want something. Maybe it's food, a new phone, something random from Amazon, or a hobby purchase. In that moment, it feels justified because the money's right there. It's instant, it's easy, but silver works differently. If your savings account is sitting in silver, there's friction between you and spending it. You can't simply just push a button to transfer it over and watch it disappear. You have to actually physically grab the silver, drive it to a coin shop, and sell it. You have to consciously decide that whatever you're going to buy is worth giving up that silver. And I think that the tiny amount of friction completely changes the human behavior. Because most purchases are emotional. Most purchases are impulsive. Most purchases happen because we want something right now, and silver naturally slows down that process. Now, of course, some people are going to hear this and immediately say, well, that means silver's less liquid? Yes, that's the exact point. I think one of the biggest mental shifts someone has to make when they start stacking precious metals is start thinking of their wealth in terms of liquidity. And it is correct that we can't just spend this silver. It is not as liquid as cash. And even at that point, we start getting into the ideas of comparing this to the dollar, only then to trade it for something comparable to the same dollar amount. If we try to think outside of the dollar, the discussion becomes how much silver does it take to purchase something like a chicken? Or how much silver does it take to purchase a meal? If we try to think of it outside the dollar, then it gets a little bit confusing because while the dollar used to be defined by an amount of silver, it no longer is. And that's exactly why we even have the need for money in the first place. It facilitates a trade. It's a defining line between two items that can be bartered. Instead of trading chickens for goats, we can trade chickens for a money and then that money for a goat. It becomes a baseline. And the dollar is how we view all of that. Because of that, the dollar is the most liquid item. And we've been trained to believe that maximum liquidity is always a good thing. But if we're being realistic, maximum liquidity often creates maximum spending. And that's why that narrative is pushed. When money moves too easily, it disappears easily. And now, to be very clear, I'm not saying people should not have a cash savings. Emergency funds matter, bills matter, life matters. But what I am saying is that silver creates a psychological barrier that protects savings from ourselves. I think that's one of the most underrated aspects of stacking. Because most stackers are not trying to become overnight millionaires, most stackers are simply trying to preserve the value of their labor. That's it. They worked hard for their money, and they exchange hours of their life for dollars. They don't want those dollars slowly losing purchasing power while simultaneously becoming easier and easier to spend on things we don't actually need. Now, one thing people often ask me is, does silver actually perform better than a high yield savings account? And honestly, I think that's kind of the wrong question because silver and savings accounts behave different psychologically before they even behave different financially. A high yield savings account often sits one button push away from spending, and because of that, it's still vulnerable to impulse. Silver isn't. Silver requires intention. But even financially, silver does something very interesting over the long periods of time. It maintains its purchasing power. And this is another misunderstood concept in all of precious metals because someone will look at the silver chart and see volatility. They see crashes, spikes, and emotion. But when you zoom out and you compare silver to actual purchasing power, something very different starts to happen. Silver keeps buying the same things. The dollars are buying less. Let me give you a few examples. I went to the Google machine and tried to figure out what could a silver dime buy back in 1960 when a silver dime contained silver and actually meant something. Well, with one 10-cent coin, you'd be able to buy a Coca-Cola, a cup of coffee, or a comic book. What's fascinating today is that if you were to sell that silver dime at a coin shop, you'd get roughly $4. Right now, silver spot's $75, and a coin shop would give you 70% of the value in it. It's a little less than $4. But if we were to compare those prices today, a comic book, it's around $4. A coffee, now depending on where you go and how fancy you get your coffee, it would be about $4. And a Coca-Cola, well, while they don't quite make it the same, we would be able to go to a gas station or a vending machine and spend about $3 to $4 on a bottle of Coca-Cola. The silver hasn't lost its purchasing power, but the dollar absolutely did. Imagine trying to spend a clad dime on these similar items. It just would not work. And you could make an argument that the spot price of that silver dime is closer to $5.70, so it's even outperformed. But what I think is really interesting is that the premiums paid for this silver dime have come down as silver has outpaced that inflation, which is just interesting that it's come down to a point to maintain what someone is actually willing to trade you for that silver dime. I think this example explains silver better than almost anything else because silver doesn't magically become more valuable, the dollar becomes less valuable. Silver is simply adjusting alongside inflation over long periods of time. Now, of course, there are going to be moments where silver is undervalued or where silver is overvalued, but across the decades, the purchasing power remains surprisingly stable. And that's why I think stackers often think differently than traditional savers. Traditional savers focus on the number in the account, and stackers focus on what their savings can actually buy. Because if your saving account goes from 10,000 to 11,000, but the cost of living is increased faster than that, have you actually gained any purchasing power? Not really. That's where a lot of people start becoming frustrated with traditional savings accounts, especially over the last several years. People have started realizing even though their bank account balance is looking more stable, groceries were more expensive, cars are more expensive, homes are more expensive, insurance is more expensive, everything is becoming more expensive. And suddenly people begin asking themselves, what exactly am I saving? Because if the purchasing power keeps shrinking, then the account balance becomes entirely deceptive. And this is where people usually say, but silver doesn't pay interest. And that's true. Silver itself does not generate a yield. But honestly, inflation destroys the yield much faster than most people realize. If inflation outpaces your savings account, then your growth is largely illusionary. And once again, this comes back to the psychology. Most people are trained to save digitally, but digital savings are easy to mentally disconnect from. Silver is physical. You hold it, you can count it, you can organize it, you can literally see your savings growing over time. I think this creates a healthier financial behavior for a lot of people, especially intermediate stackers. Because I've noticed something about people getting into precious metals, most of them are right on the edge. They either just begin to start learning financial discipline or they're trying to strengthen it, and stacking creates that habit. Consistency, dollar cost averaging, delayed gratification, long term thinking. And those habits matter far more than whether or not silver goes up $2 over the next month. Because most people destroy their finances through behavior, not through lack of opportunity. And something else interesting happens when people start saving in silver. They stop looking at money the same way. Hundreds of dollars in a bank account feels temporary, and hundreds of dollars converted into silver feels intentional. And because it feels intentional, people often protect it more carefully. They think longer term and they become less emotional. Honestly, I think that that's the one reason stacking communities become so passionate, because stacking changes behavior. Of course, silver is not perfect. Silver is volatile. Silver can drop significantly, and silver can underperform in specific periods of time. And anybody pretending otherwise is just being unrealistic. But if someone is viewing silver as a savings account instead of a lottery ticket, then volatility becomes much easier to mentally manage, because the goal shifts away from how much money can this make this month and towards how much purchasing power can I preserve over the next few decades. Honestly, these are two completely different mindsets. One is speculation and the other is preservation. Something else I want to mention here is liquidity, because people often act like silver is impossible to sell quickly, and that's not true at all. If you really need the money, silver is extremely liquid. You can walk into a coin shop and leave with cash the same day. The difference is that silver introduces enough friction to stop unnecessary spending while still remaining liquid enough for actual emergencies. I think that that balance is beautiful, because silver is not trapped wealth, silver is protected wealth. And once you can understand that, silver stops being about the price charts or predictions, and it becomes about structure. How do you choose to hold your wealth, and how you choose to protect your future decisions? If you like this video, make sure to go and give it a thumbs up. Go into the comment section to ask questions or have a conversation with others watching this video. Share the video with those you think may enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you've been following my channel for some time now, I just want to say thank you so much for your support. Make sure you go to my website, josephsreserves.com, to check out any merchandise, zip-up bags, coffee mugs, or of course the coffee itself, or at least to sign up for my monthly newsletter. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, every ounce adds up, so no matter how small, just keep stacking.